Halito, and welcome to Native Chalk Talk, a podcast by natives for all. Here we're keeping our Native ancestors' stories and history alive, while also sharing with you our Native culture, traditions, and more. I'm Rachel Youngman, a Choctaw originally from Anadarko, Oklahoma. I hope you'll enjoy this journey with me as we learn from our Native American guests. And I hope you'll do me a favor. Feel free to like and share these episodes. I so appreciate it. Yakuki. I feel a sense of urgency literally every single day. I'm always encouraging people, hey, record your ancestors, capture as many stories as possible so that we can keep those things alive for generations to come.
See and share our stories at togetherwe'remore.com.
You're listening to part 4 of this series.
He also had deep feeling for, I think, orphan children. Mm-hmm. He would invite them over to live with him if they were didn't have a place to live, and he would treat them just like his own. Mm-hmm. And then when they grow up and get bigger, he would encourage them if they knew where their family was, to go home to them after he took care of them. And there was even not just children, but I would imagine he understood how they felt because of him losing his father. And he would also take just anybody who came through it. It wouldn't even have to be native. And he would allow them to make camp down there around his house, and even lend them a stove. And there was one man who Quanah helped and with a stove that Quanah gave him, and he returned it back to Quanah later down the road.
Very generous. He was a powerful guy. I guess he didn't always have to be that generous, and yet he was.
Mm-hmm. Well, you know, when the president came on a hunt with him and they came to his house, we have pictures of that. Some of those dignitaries around his table. I've often wondered, what did he feed them? You know, did they eat Indian
right.
food? I know they didn't have bologna sandwiches.
No, and knowing Quanah, he wanted to pull out all the stops, right?
I think he wanted to impress him and probably fix his very best. And he was real particular about what they ate, I'm sure, and his bread. This is what Anna told me, was that he wanted one of his wives to make the fry bread because he liked his fry bread not round, but oval.
Oh.
Kind of smaller, oval. Not perfectly round like we make them nowadays.
Oh.
And so he thought that was better for them, and he would get her whatever wife it was to make that bread.
You know, I was told by an elder lady in the Cache community that, Quanah had so many modern things. You know, whenever he entertained, he would pull all of that out. For example, she said he had these Wedgwood China where it was in Wedgwood. And she called me to her house one day, and she said, these belonged to Quanah. They were in his home. Are you
serious?
They were in his home, and it's what he would put on that big long table, and he would serve. You know, like Theodore Roosevelt and Goodnight, some of those ranchers, Texas ranchers, and he would serve them. And she says, she pulled them out of the box, and she said, I'm going to give these to you, Sandra. Oh. And she said, you have been in this community a long time. You've taught a lot of our children, and you've trained them well. You taught them well. They all liked you. You liked all of them. And, you know, on that day, I can't remember exactly when it was, I inherited a big old box, a 8-place setting, a floral gold-rimmed Wedgwood. And then she said it was left in the home. It was left in the home with one of his children, and I still have those today.
Oh, I love it. Feel free to send me a photo if you'd like to.
One of those plates are about like $2,000 I researched it.
Oh my goodness.
So they're very valuable. My niece, she said, Auntie, and I'm raising her, she said, Auntie, she said, I'm going to need a car. Will you be able to sell those china for all that money? You said, one plate is good.
No.
You have to do something else, Master.
You're going to have to drive a beater because we're not getting rid of it. It's that sentimental value more than anything that's important.
I still have all of those.
Oh, that's so
When
great.
President Roosevelt came to visit, it's documented in the Lawton Constitution that our grandmother, Nora Parker, who was Baldwin Jr.'s wife, that she was the interpreter and that she had learned English very well at Chilocco Indian School. So he picked her to be the interpreter for that day.
She actually lived in the house too, her and Grandpa Baldwin. And the way she described Quanah was that he was a very nice looking man. He was very respectful and very cordial to everybody. She said he was really nice. That was her impression of him. And I thought, wow, I'd like to meet him.
It makes you wonder how he had those social graces, not that he wouldn't have, being raised in the Comanche tribe, but I wonder if Cynthia Ann his mother taught him some of that. Maybe the more white social
I always
graces.
think of what all she must have taught him. And to me, it plays a big part of who he is because he had good memories of her. And I'm sure that she encouraged him to do all the things that he learned how to do, like riding horses and might have been Anna or someone that told me that he was so good at riding horses and doing tricks that he would go around and camp and just show off. I mean, just show how good he was.
My question about him and his personality was, how did he live with all these wives? If you ever been in the Star House, there's a room this is where my seamstress wife, his seamstress wife lived. This is where the one that took care of the kitchen. All of that. But how did they all get together? And here's what Tope, Anna said that Tope said, "Oh, we had it made." In those days, the Comanche women did everything. Got up in the morning, put up the tent and took it down. But they also started the fires. And she said they didn't have to do that. He had cowboys. The cowboys came in and they started the fires.
Right.
And they served them, so they were waited on hand and foot by cowboys.
I remember, Jacquetta, about those wives is that, they didn't fuss and argue among themselves. They each had their duty. They had one of the wives were in charge of all the keys. And the ranchers or cowboys had to come to her to go open certain gates in certain buildings.
Yeah.
There was one wife that traveled with him. She was like the show wife.
And she didn't have no children.
No children.
What was that show wife like? Know anything else about her?
I don't know anything about her except that
Her name was Tanarsi.
Tanarsi. She was fairly young,
Okay.
but he just dressed her for the occasion.
Yes.
Right.
He dressed her in proper attire when they go to Washington D.C. But it was just his one he took with her, and she didn't have any children.
Yes. She's the one that you would see standing on the porch and she would have her hands on her.
Yeah.
Oh,
Her hand was the show wife.
I think he left Pease in charge of, for the cowboys. The reason why she got that job is because she could ride as good as the cowboys. That was her job.
Not all about teamwork.
That's so funny.
Talking about the Star House and the missionary folks, I believe their name was Kofeld.
Kofeld was
the
the
first
one.
Mennonite folks that came down and wanted to start a mission. And so they told him he had to talk to the chief. His name's Quanah. So they went over there and they told him he's not in, but he'll be in tomorrow. So sure enough, he come in the next day and somebody noticed that, these people camped over there. He got to the house and said, "Who are those folks?" He said, "They want to build a Jesus house." Jesus house. Anyway, next day he called them up and they wanted him. He wanted to listen to them. They said, "We want to start a mission church." And I guess he always had this education in his mind. So he went back to his house, and this was told by a cough-out great-grandson. He said, "My dad was just a little boy." And he said, so when we went up there, my great-grandpa went up there, he said, Quanah went back into the house. He come back out, he had a hatchet. And he said, we just thought he was going to scalp us right there. But told him to get in, follow him. And that's when he went out to about 2.5 miles west of the Star House, and he notched a oak tree, post oak tree, and he said, "Build Jesus House."
Oh.
So that's how the school. We went to school till they closed down in '58.
Well, when he gave him that land for the church, he also required that they have a school
He
for his
wanted to have a school,
for his children.
Oh, right.
and they provided us a school.
They
Didn't they?
provided a school, and I
Yeah.
went there. Donnie went there. Ardith and Sandra. We all
Yes.
went to school there.
All went there.
And if you ever seen that map of the grounds, I said I could tell you every building there, and I can remember everything, and the girls can too, I'm sure. But what speaks to me today is when I think of Quanah, how is he so visionary that he could see that he needed to work on our spiritual welfare. That was the Protestant and the Native American church. He needed to work on our educational welfare. That was the school at the parochial school and the town school, the regular secular school. That how could he see that? That's what I think about, because he gave us these paths to go down. And I tell my friends and say my sisters that I think about it a lot, that it actually paved the way for who I am today. That I am who I am as an educator, an educated educator, and who I am as a Christian, and still working in the church today because of Quanah. See, when he notched that oak tree, he said, "This is for Jacquetta, Sandra, Donnie, Nora, Ardith, all of Buster's kids and all of my kids. This is for them." And so we all learned the Protestant way. We all became Christians and continued to be Christians throughout all this time. Now, that's not to say we had to choose Native American church or regular church, because some people do both, you know. Mm-hmm. And that's not to say that we couldn't go to a Christian school and a secular school, because we did both. All of us Ardith went to Weatherford. He went to Weatherford School University. She and I went to the University of Oklahoma, and I made her go to get her master's degree. She was tired of teaching over there at Cassius. And I said, "Well, you come up here and you get your master's degree." And then she went into counseling. And so I stayed up there. And the only reason I finished was stayed because the government needed women in business. And I could have told that story. They needed women in business. And so there were 50 big scholarships given, and I was one of them.
Oh,
that's why amazing. I got to stay. But I look back and say, if it wasn't for Quanah, I would have never gone to college. My dad would have never encouraged us, to go to college. And of all my 11 brothers and sisters, 10 brothers and sisters, almost every one of them have a degree or some college. And my dad went to 10th grade. My mom had 1 year of college at Cameron, but they encouraged us to all go and have it. I'm sure Simmons did his kids too the same way. So I look at his impact on my life today, how I live, how I think, how we train our children, and how we train the children in this little church that we have, just everything about us. And I'm just so honored that he was our dad.
What foresight he had.
Oh my gosh, how did he see that? And not let go of 1 foot in one place and 1 foot in another. Don't ever forget who you are. You are Comanche, you're Indian, you're Parker. So that's what I try to get all of our kids to remember. And be proud. And be proud. Not too proud that we look down on other people, but proud so that we help other people.
Yes, ma'am.
Help other kids and help. That's what we do at our little church. We don't have very many, but sometimes they'll come back and say, "I remember everything you taught me, Miss Jacquetta, in that program." I said, "How old are you?" He said, 45. "You want me to sing for you?" And they come back. They come back to get married. They come back to be buried. They come back when they need prayer to our little church.
We'll be back after this quick break. Y'all, I have to show you my new favorite soap from Baker's Bar Soapery. Check out this Yunish, which means buffalo in Choctaw. It's scented with leather fragrance, so I bought one for my husband and one for me too, of course, and it smells so good. This soap is a tribute to the Choctaw and the resilience of the buffalo. Luxury soaps, lotions, and lip balms from Baker's Bar Soapery are 100% Choctaw crafted. And yes, these are made with goat's milk, so they leave your skin feeling soft and supple. So load up on these Choctaw soaps made by Tiffany at Baker's Bar Soapery at thebbsoapery.com. But be sure to get 20% off when you use the code NATIVECHOCTALK, that's all caps, when you spend $25 or more. Treat yourself to the luxury your skin deserves with Baker's Bar Soapery.
Jacquetta, I know you have a lot of memories of the school. As you mentioned, there's the school and the church that were built together with on Comanche land by the Mennonites. So why don't you tell us your memories of the school itself? What did it look like?
It was a one-room thing. There was a pot-bellied stove at the front. And in the back, there was a kind of a skinny little add-on where this German lady made bread every day and cooked our meals. And in this side was where the teacher sat. Miss Ruth Weens was our first teacher. And I can name almost all the teachers that were there. And we learned. We were all in one room, but we learned. And then the military took over that part and moved Post Oak Church into the town of Indiahoma. They moved the cemetery into the town of Indiahoma, and they moved our school and made a little better two-story school. And so, I graduated from that school, and it was interesting because when we went to, do you remember making the transition from our Mennonite Brethren school to Indiahoma High School?
We were ahead.
Girl, we were 1 year ahead of them. Freshman year was just nothing. I thought, man, what are these kids doing? And so they said, well, how did y'all learn all that? And I had a Wayne Picotti, do you remember him?
Yeah.
Sister, I wish I had a PhD like you. I said, well, Wayne, you could have. But every day when we were learning them Bible verses, we have to learn about one a day. Bible verse, you just back there messing around with Boot Boy, acting crazy, not even learning. You could have had a PhD too. Oh, I'm so sorry I didn't. Went to school at Indiahoma and they said, well, how come you were here? I said, the missionaries made us learn. They made us memorize and learn, and we just enjoyed doing it. Now my grandchildren say, Grandma, we don't want to hear that love of learning stuff. Love to learn, and we all learn to love to learn, and we're still kind of that way. Ardith is our resident researcher for Quanah and our museum collector. And Sandra and I, we just do all kind of things even now. I'm 82 as of yesterday, and Sandra, she's
Happy
81.
birthday.
And we just keep on going until the Lord says, you're ready to go home. So I'm just, and I got that from Quanah Parker's decision to give the land for the church. I'll tell you a story about my dad. So I'm taking this PhD doctoral exams, about a 14-hour exam, 2 days. And I called and I said, Dad, what? Daughter said, you really have to pray for me. Why, what's happening? I said, I'm getting this doctoral exam. It's do or die. If I don't pass it, no matter what I've done it, because it don't matter. You just have to really pray. Okay, I'll get my things together. I said, well, where are you going? He said, I'm getting my together and I'm going to the creek over there. I'm going to the creek. And he said, I'm going to God's natural temple to pray for you. He was going to the creek. He was going to the woods, God's creation. He said, I'm going to God's natural temple to pray for you.
Oh,
and I passed.
It works.
It works. And plus 8 more hours of oral exam. God's natural temple. You'll remember that when you're out there at the powwows or at the creek or wherever you're at. God's natural temple is what he said. And Kaku would get dirt and say, son, to my dad, son, hold this. That's where you came from. And she put it in his hand. Remember? That's where you came from. And I just thought, she's the one that was interpreted. We call her Kaku.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's
beautiful.
They were really, how should I say it? Knowledgeable, wise, wisdom beyond what we normally have. Now, how they didn't speak English all their lives, so how did they know that?
Right.
We had Grandma Aha, who sat at the creek and watched us play, and she just sang and prayed, and she didn't speak English ever. But people would come by. They loved to play baseball. My dad and all of them, they'd come by. Where is she? At the creek. They'd go down and, could you please pray for us? And they'd all come through. She'd pray for them. Their safety and their win, because they sure like to bet.
Please don't let them lose all their money.
Yeah, that's my story.
That's beautiful. I love that. And did all of you go to Post Oak School?
Yes.
Okay. Did you
dad,
as well?
I believe my dad went there in his early years.
Okay.
And so my dad got all the same teachings,
Mhm.
encouraged us to go to school, get
Yeah.
a degree. And I did get my degree at the University of Science and Arts in Oklahoma
Okay. Yeah.
in sociology. My dad wanted a degree, but he was not able to get one. But one thing he did that really blessed our lives, he encouraged us to read.
Mm.
So he had that same, mindset to learn. And so we were real unusual in our neighborhood. We were the only family that had a set of encyclopedias. We didn't have a TV, and Dad would put a blanket down there, and we sat down there and we would read. And so he inspired us, to learn just like Quanah inspired the people.
Well, I know that the Post Oak Mennonite Mission, the church, it sounds like it had a big effect on all of
Yes,
y'all.
it
So, and I know that Jacquetta, you and Dawn both know a lot about the church itself.
Mhm.
So there was English and Comanche hymns. How did that work in a church service?
Well, in the church service, it was a small church, but it's really interesting. On this side, they had about 10 pews where the non-English speaking people sat. And there was an interpreter guy at the front. The rest of us sat on this side. And now think about it, how did it not bother us? The preacher would be up here and preaching, and this guy would be speaking Comanche over here to all of these. Now, we all learned to sing Indian hymns, and today we can still sing. We try to keep up on a lot of them. We don't know the peyote songs like he does.
Okay.
But those of us church sisters, we know church hymns. But that's how it went on. And then we went outside to different places to Sunday school, and there was a little nursery in there.
Okay.
So that's how the church went. Then from there, we went on to the dining room, and every family brought their lunch. And we all sat at different tables, but we were all together and helped and served anybody didn't have food. So we all had lunch together. Then when lunch was over, about 2:30, all the adults went right back to church. Now, most of the kids could run off and play, but the rest of they went to church all afternoon to about 4:30 or 5.
Oh, wow.
Did we have nighttime church?
We had night.
Yes, we did.
Yeah, afternoon, night. We went to church all day long.
Right? I remember doing that too.
And now,
yeah.
we barely, if our preacher's going over 12 o'clock, it's too long. And we ate every Sunday. Well, I'm going to tell you. So then we started our church at Cache, which is a Mennonite Brethren too, that we have a Mennonite Brethren at Alma, we have a Mennonite Brethren at Cache.
Okay.
And so when we started our church at Cache, we cooked every Sunday. Every Sunday we have lunch together. Cook lunch every Sunday.
That's amazing.
And it's wonderful because we're a small church.
Yeah.
We know everybody. We can pray for everybody. We know your family, your children, who needs prayer, and all of that. So there's two, though, because we had the original church at Post Oak at Indiahoma,
Okay.
Post Oak Mission Church. But then a lot of us were from Cache. So my grandpa Pete said, let's start a Cache church over at Cache, too. So
Right.
that's how we ended up at Cache. Pete Coffee,
And
Mennonite.
we've
Okay.
been there probably 20-something, 20, 30 years, 30 years.
And something I thought was really admirable about them building their church was they used their sales in fry bread, and they saved their money for years, and that was hard work. They set up different events, and I always never got to really tell you, but I always thought that was so admirable. They worked hard, they worked together, and built
Yeah.
the church on their sales.
When we decided to build down there, we went ahead and started meeting in my aunt's home. But we started trying to raise funds. You know how you do little bake sales and whatever. Maybe we make $100 if we're lucky.
Right.
And she said, Jacquetta, we are not going to live to see a church if we don't do something else. And so what we did was we went to Lawton, and they have big festivals there. And we got into 2 of the big festivals. And we could really make fry bread. We could really make fry bread. And you
I
might make
bet.
$100 on a bake sale, but we could make 1,000, 2,000, 3,000, 4,000 at the fry bread sale, at the taco sale. And that's how we did. So then we put it in a savings for us, and we kept doing that. I think 15 years. It took us 15 years to do
Wow.
it. And when we started doing it, the Post Oak Mennonite Brethren district minister said, Jacquetta, you cannot build a church with children. Because Grandpa Pete said, focus on the children. They're the future of the church. And so that's what we said we'll do. But it was hard to do because you don't have a bunch of tithers if their parents don't come and whatever. And I said, well, that's all right. I said, because this is what Grandpa said for us to do, and that's what we're going to do it. So years later, I was telling when I give my testimony, I said, but there's another part of this story. Brother so-and-so didn't know what tacos could do. Except for $4,000 and some paid labor. We didn't pay her husband for helping us, but paid labor. we built that church. He built that church. He said, well, we have to have $65,000 because that's what they charge me for a church, this man. I said, well, we have it. But meantime, I went to one of my professors. I was the dean, business dean. So I went to my professors and said, you got to help me. We got to invest this money really good and carefully because it's God's money. He said, well, what can we do? He said, can we build a laddered portfolio? And that's where you invested a long time.
Okay.
And we made a lot of money off of that during those years when interest was high. And so we had our $65,000 to pay for that red iron to put up the building structure. And so he didn't know that we could save that much money out of fry bread. And now we're a little church and we own what? How many acres? 7 acres.
7 acres.
We have a little church that's insured for $200,000. And we have one little van or whatever. And we're debt free. What are they going to do when she and Arda die? Making fry bread. You know, the key to fry bread is like McDonald's. It's got to be the same quality every time. If you don't have that, you might as well forget it. So, and same quality comes when you do it over and over and over. So this last year, I got my second rack I ever had in my life. They said I'm lucky to be alive. Well, I had just come. I went to a ball game. I'd come from mixing 300 pounds of flour for our sale.
Oh my goodness!
And I was just coming home at night on the dirt road in the country, and I went to sleep. So I guess I was tired and had a really bad wreck.
Oh.
But anyhow, someone has to take over this job. It's the Lord's work.
So we're recruiting. Today.
My sisters
Let us know
how, but they're not all good about doing 500 pounds of flour.
That's a lot. So are you going to share any of the secrets of your fry bread recipe? We're ready. We're ready. Tell us. I hear that you're not supposed to handle it too much. Is that true?
Depends.
It can get kind of
depends. It depends on what you're doing. And I'll tell you why I make a soft dough. You got to know why you do it. Because I make a soft dough because we use it for several days. And then when I first get it out, then I work it again. Make those little balls and I work it again. Now, if you're just making it, and like Ardith makes it and uses it pretty quickly, but she's just making it for that event. That supper. But I'm making it and making what? I don't know how many cans of that roll. So you have to tell them why you're doing it this way. So it depends on what you do. So I taught our only person that really took me up on it was our AT&T repairman.
He's not native.
He's not native, and he comes and he helps me. He said, I know you've been in that wreck. Now come help me. Makes that dough.
Well, my husband would love to have a session with you sometime because my family, we've always made fry bread, but my mom is always the best at it. And I was trying to teach my husband, how to make it. And he made it. And it was really like gooey and doughy.
I bet your mom makes good fry bread.
Oh, she makes such good fry bread.
Because there's different ways to make good fry bread.
Agreed.
And so it just depends on who you're doing it for and what you're doing and how long you're going to do it.
Hers are usually about that big. They're not super big, but they're really clumpy, which is the way I'm used to it. And
we don't like ours clumpy. We like ours light. And go in there and pull them clumps out. Throw them in the trash.
We have a knife to just cut it with a fork.
Okay. Yeah, we can't. We have to have a knife. That's how lumpy ours are. We poke honey in them too.
And if you eat it right, man, what difference does it make?
It's so funny.
I watch in the food, not the network, but some of the food channels. Every native tribe around the world has a type of fry bread.
That's so interesting.
I mean, they need it. They need it just like I need it. Some of them need it real hard. Some of them don't need it real hard. And they either cook it in a skillet or lay it like we do cowboy bread or slap it inside of a big stone container.
My husband's. I came down one morning and he was in the kitchen making fry bread. And I was like, what are you doing? He was like, I am determined to get this right. And now his fry bread is so much better than mine.
Oh my gosh,
he looked up all these videos of native women making fry bread and was trying to understand it better. Anyway.
But that's the key that most people don't check into. When are you going to use it? How much are you going to use it for? What those factors.
Stay tuned for part 5 of this series.
Thanks for listening to Native Chalk Talk. Be sure to join our community on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter, and check us out at nativechalktalk.com. Stay tuned for the next episode. You're going to love it. Yakoki. Thank you, my friends.